Okay, I bet this one has something to do with the last problem. And I hate to, go through, like some work that's related to the last one without using the last problem. So what I did over here was I kind of rewrote the problem as y equals arctangent of x. And then I'd write down, oh, by the way, before I do that, I want to point out in calculus, most teachers do not do what I'm doing over here. They would write down tangent of arctangent of x, then they write down tangent of y is equal to x. They differentiate it where they get secant squared y dy dx is equal to 1, and dy dx would equal cosine squared of y. I want to point out the invertible region for us here is between minus pi over 2 and pi over 2, and the cosine function is going to be non-negative there. So another triangle problem for me. So what am I looking at over here? Another little triangle, and I'll put out the triangle we're talking about, this one over here. This is going to be, the angle's going to be y, this will be x, that'll be 1. And what do you get there? Pythagorean theorem, that'll be x squared plus 1. And the cosine of that is 1 over the root of x squared plus 1. And if you were to square that, you get 1 over 1 plus x squared. By the way, that's what we're expecting. At the very end of this thing with the dust settles, we're expecting to see that, all right? So let's say that's what a calculus teacher would normally do. And what I want to do over here is go through what we've been asked to do is use the definition. And I'm hoping the definition we're going to use is related to the struggle we had in the last problem. Let's talk about it step by step. We got this part covered. Let's write down y is equal to arctangent. Certainly been doing this many times before. Then I wrote down cotangent. And then I squared both sides. All right. And that's relatively simple, by the way. I'm kind of looking at it now. And I know the cotangent is related to the cosecant. And how's it related to? It's related to the cosecant squared of y minus 1. Let me just simply review that with you. Sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta is equal to 1. If you divide through by, if you divide through by, sine squared theta, you would get 1 plus the cotangent squared theta is equal cosecant squared theta. And then if I write that down, the cotangent would be equal to cosecant squared theta minus 1. So I'm seeing that over here. We just did that over here. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. The next thing I would do is, looking at it, I want to get the cosecant squared alone. So I add 1 to both sides, and that would give you this over here, if I did that. Next thing I would do is I want to go back to sines because that's what we just did. I get this over here, the sine squared, the reciprocal, and then I'm going to use the root on it. I got this over here, all right, which isn't bad. And I'm going to write this over here, all right? So the next thing I do, it might seem strange to you. It looks complicated, but I would write down, y equals arc sine. But that argument looks really crazy to me. So what I did was I said u is equal to it, and I just put a u down over here. And someone says, well, you just did that. You're not kidding, I just did that. So I know what that is, and I don't want to go through that again. That's a lot of work to get there. So what do I know? I know dy, let's see, du, right? I do know that. And what's that going to be? And that's going to be, I'll write this down over here, 1 over 1 minus, we just did it, by the way, 1 minus u squared, all right? But then you start to realize I didn't want dy du, I wanted dy dx. But I certainly know what dy du is. All right, so let's go back over here. And the way I write that down is I don't want the dy du, I want the dy dx. So what I do is I just do it again. Dy dx, well, it's going to be the derivative of the arc sine, which is 1 over the root of 1 minus u squared. And then I got chain rule, go the inside, du dx. I don't know du dx. All right, so that's why I had to do the definition now. All right, so what do I do over there? I write it down. And someone says, I wonder what u is. Well, it's up here. This is the u. So I just write it down. So I put this over here, plug it in, multiply by the conjugate, really not so bad. When you do that, and again, it's work. It was work for me too, by the way. Like when you multiply this out, and you multiply this out over here, it's work. I mean, someone says, what do you mean it's work? I had to put work down, and it was paper and pencil work. And if you do that, you're going to get this business over here. All right? And then someone says, can you evaluate that? And yeah, you can. As h goes to 0, right? Let me write this down for you. As h goes to 0, what are you going to get over here? Well, you get 1 plus x squared, and then you're going to get 1 plus x squared. I just did this over here. You can get 2x on top. And then what do you get there? You get some kind of crazy looking root problem, right? So you're going to get this over here, which is going to be x squared. And then you're going to get, 1 plus x squared. And then you're going to get plus, well, it looks like the same thing, doesn't it? X squared, 1 plus x squared. And again, we'll get there. And, looking at it, let's be careful with this, right? So you get 2x. You get 1 plus x squared squared. Here you're going to get 2 of these things, and that's going to be root x squared, and then the root of 1 plus x squared, right? Let's see if I did that right. You got 2x on top, you got 1 plus x squared squared, you got, let's see, 2x squared. I do see that, and yeah, I see it. Let's keep moving. I want to make sure I get that over there. And I'm going to write this down for you. It's going to be 2x, and then root of 1 plus x squared. On bottom, what do you get? You get 1 plus x squared. You get squared, 2, and then you get x over here. This cancels off. And I'm kind of looking at that now, and what do I get? Yeah, I get, you know what? I think I made a mistake in the notes here. There's something missing over here. There should be a 2 there. And I'm glad I looked at it. There should be a 2 there. So someone's going to say, am I going to see that if I'm looking at the notes? You're not going to see that, all right? But I will correct this. So I gotta put a correction in here, and I just noticed it. That's one thing nice about, reading back over your notes. You see errors that you didn't know were there. Not sure how that happened, by the way, because I know it's the only place where the error occurred at this point. But let's go back over it. We're doing this over here. What did we find out? We found out it was this, and now it's time for me to plug in. And what I plug in, well, we just found the du dx, that's this over here, with the correction put in. And then it's 1 minus u squared. And there's a problem now. And what's the problem going to be? Well, I got to figure this part out. It looks really complicated, by the way. You get 1 minus, well, what's u squared? Let's go back up here and remind you what u squared is. It's this thing right over here, which is x squared over 1 plus x squared. All right, so I put that in there. And then I got to manipulate. And let's go through the manipulation, by the way. What do you see over there? We're manipulating this over here. You see 1 plus x squared on top. That's not a big issue for me. On bottom, what do you get? A little more complicated. Let's put this down as a root. And what are you going to get there? Well, you get, let's see, calm down, be 1 plus x squared. We're doing this over here. Let's see, you're going to get 1 plus x squared minus x squared, which is 1. That's not so bad. And then when you get there, you get, let's see what you get. You get 1 plus x squared, right? Squared. All right? Let's see what that looks like. And looking at it, I got to kind of manipulate this thing, right? So what I notice is that complex fractions, so it's going to be root 1 plus x squared times or root 1 plus x squared. And on bottom, you get 1 plus x squared squared. Well, lo and behold, what do you get over here? You get 1 plus x squared on top. On the bottom, you get 1 plus x squared squared, which is 1 over 1 plus x squared. Exactly what we're expecting it to be. Thank you.